What is a battle axe block? Should you buy a battle axe block? Does a battle axe block go up in price as much as any other block of land? Stay tuned. We're going to talk about it this morning.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes, episode 488. What is a battle axe block? Should you buy one? What is the potential growth? A lot of being on the market. I think let's face it, a battle axe has bad stigma. So on this show, we'll address, is that stigma justified? Who buys them? Should you buy them? And ultimately, how is the growth with the battle axe block? But also privacy. I think a big concern that may steer buyers away from a battle axe is the perceived privacy, and also the perceived...
What is a battle axe?
Yeah, so what is it? I was trying to beat the timer with this image. Let me bring this up.
So we're talking about blocks of land, and you got your rectangle, square block of land that faces the street. Here is the interpretation. So I even got a diagram, Michael. Wow. Yeah. Look at that. And it looks like a
L. Well, one block.
It looks like a battle axe.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
An axe that you use in battle, or a battle that when you're in a battle, the axe that you have.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I can see the reference, battle axe. So, what are buyers' concerns, Mark, when they see this? Either looking at one or lot two. Is there a better? Is there a worse? What is first of all, why is it like this? Let's go well back.
Yeah, good call. So why it's like that is they needed access. They had a massive block of land, and they needed access to the street. And they wanted to get another block of land they wanted to separate two blocks into one. So if you're separating two blocks into one, do you want to do two very, very, very long, very, very, very skinny? No. You want to do a regular shaped block at the front, a regular shaped block at the back, and then you want to do a driveway down the side, hence the battle axe block.
Yeah, because obviously, ideally, you would almost rather the block not as deep but a lot wider. But if you think of a streetscape, if a block was double the width, you'd get far less houses on them. So there's a lot of core areas. If you look at some areas did different zoning, so you could just make them totally separate. Like if you look at freshwater, probably because of the street configuration, like there's still some double blocks that go from one street to another, which could give two frontages. But there's also a lot of streets that back onto forest. So you can't create a rear access. You can't create a street, or it's just not feasible to do so. So you've almost got to create a mini street on that block so you can have, as you said, two normal shaped blocks, because realistically, there's not really much difference from a house in lot 1 or 2 in that diagram to a house that's not a battle axe. The big difference is there's no backyard it's a smaller backyard, not there's no backyard. You've gone from, let's say a typical block was 1,000 square meters. You may have a 200 square meter house and then 600 square meters of land to play with.
So you battle axe it.
Yeah, you battle axe it. You have 400 square meters of house, 200, and land in between.
Now, people watching, I would love to know what you think of a battle axe block. Do you love them? Do you hate them? Why? What are the pros and what are the cons in your mind? Michael, let's go through some positives about a battle axe block.
Yeah, I think a big positive is it can sometimes be a lower entry point to buy the actual house. There's a lot of people out there. Yeah, cheaper. We'll skim through it. Cheaper, but also a good location without the noise sometimes. If you buy a lot, let's say you're on a main road and you don't want to be on a main road because you hear the cars go past, but you can buy the back block, then you've got the accessibility without the noise. So that's a really good one as well. And then also, if it does have a smaller backyard, lower maintenance, it may just be all house really, and small boundaries, and that's what you need: lower maintenance, maybe downsizing from a big house, big backyard. Don't want to go to a unit. Don't want to go to a townhouse. So once again, cheap maintenance.
Another benefit is generally with battle axe blocks, guys and girls, you're sitting in people's backyards. So because you're actually extended into the back of the block, you've obviously normally behind that battle axe block, you've got someone's backyard. Besides that battle axe block, you've got someone else's backyard, and back right of that battle axe block, you've got someone else's backyard. So often what I like about the battle axe block is there's a bit more distance between adjoining homes than traditionally what you would normally see with a normal block.
Yeah, and then the negative to that is everyone's sort of looking back to you. So you feel like everyone's looking at you, but they're not. Because think about it this way, if you're side by side everyone, you're sort of not looking left or right. But if you're behind, you sort of feel, even though you're not, you sort of feel it. So I think that's a big one as well. Some people, when you're standing in the home, they're just like, oh, there's their back door, there's their back door, there's their backyard. If they come out, they look at me. So I think some are done really well where they're not visible, and that can just be naturally from treescapes. Some are quite exposed, as you can imagine, if you're around everyone's backyard.
Okay. So we talked about some pros, a lot of pros here. Let's talk about some negatives of a battle axe block. Streetscape. So yep. I think you don't get that pretty house from the street that you drive past and look at. It's normally buried at the back of the block, which is good. So just so you know, everyone, people generally prefer, do not prefer, it's a nice way of saying it, yeah, to have a battle axe. They would rather opt to have a normal street frontage. So that's one. You don't get that pretty streetscape. Another thing as well, Michael, is often you don't get vehicle access. So your vehicle access can be a little bit harder because you don't have multiple points of entry to the front of your block. So if you're doing things like a pool or getting in heavy machinery and stuff, yes, it's that little bit harder. What else is negative on a battle axe block? Why do people opt out? Why are battle axe blocks cheaper?
Yeah, I think that's a big one though. The access. Sometimes the road's not yours, so you're always, anything important or daily access can be impeded, and you sort of feel like, if I'm buying a house, I want it all to be mine. I don't want. I got out of a unit block where sharing driveways and sharing stuff because I wanted to get out of it. So I think that's a big one as well. Privacy from other adjoining neighbours is a big one, and sometimes no backyard. Sometimes there are, there's huge block, but typically it's a much smaller backyard. You can't really do a traditional granny flat out the back, so it takes away your second income potentially, or third income of a house. Building is more expensive.
That's a big one. That's a massive one.
Huge.
Will it take a granny flat? Will a battle axe take a granny flat or not? Most generally, it's going to be hard to get a granny flat onto a battle axe. That's a bloody good reason not to buy a battle axe.
Yeah, if you look at a lot of when you're downsizing, you put a granny flat at the back, it covers your little mortgage left or a bit of money to live on. So sometimes a battle axe may not be your forever home if you're stepping upwards, because you want to have that ability on your later years to put extra income. But you can always put a granny flat on top, do things like that, but it may be more difficult. So I think they're difficult ones as well. And yep.
What's the price difference for a block of land that's battle axe and a block of land that's street frontage?
I think sometimes it's hard to quantify with price, but it's more, if you have 10 buyers, half of them automatically won't look at a battle axe. So depending on what type of cycle you are in the market, the upswing of two like-for-like properties, land and everything, but one frontage, one battle axe, could be 50 grand, could be 500 grand, depending on the market, which we touched on other times. But the principle of it is less buyers would choose it. So it would be generally a lesser price. I don't think you could say 10%, but it depends on the market swing. In a downward market, which we touched on last week, it may not be any different in price, but it sells, and the Battle Axe sits on the market for 6 months. Or in a up market like now, it goes for $500,000 more. So I think it's just be realistic, fewer buyers.
So price difference?
Fewer buyers is the difference. So it could mean 50 grand, it could mean 500 grand.
So your opinion, no price difference?
No, huge price difference. But you can't...
10%?
10% is fair. Yeah, but it's not about the dollars, it's less buyers equal less dollars. So depending on what position of the market.
I tell you what I think it's important. At the moment, what people really forget about is when you look at property values, guys, they are really tied into land. Land is an appreciating asset. The actual house itself is a depreciating asset. The actual house itself is a depreciating asset. And I saw that with Red Hill, you know, that new estate that sold with all those brand new homes. I can't remember the name of it again, but not in Red Hill, up in Terry Hills there. Terry Hills on the golf course. These particular houses sold for $1 million for a brand new house and $1 million for a block of land that the house sat on. What got me was over 20 years, there wasn't that good, that the capital growth wasn't that good, and I couldn't understand why. Because but what actually happened was that land doubled and doubled in value again, but the value of the house went down because it went from a brand new $1 million house to a 20-year-old house, which were big homes, which needed a lot of work to get them back up to spec again. Here's my point, bringing it back to Battle Axe. Land, you're buying land. Land is good. So guys and girls who are looking out there, if you are buying a house for $2 or $3 million, say $2 million, that's a Battle Axe. Probably about $500,000 to $700,000 is going to be the value of the house, and probably about 1.5 is going to be the land value. A lot of it's going to be land value. So if going back to your figures, Michael, about land value, you are buying for 10% cheaper, which then equates to more house for your money, more bang for your buck. So if you are really on a budget and you really can't afford the house that you want to buy, have a serious look at Battle Axe, because you are getting more for your money house-wise, less for your money block-wise. Could be important. Lisa Novak just sold one, a great one in Mona Vale. It's away from a busy road. It had views, was elevated, rear block, smashed the price, talk it up, 3.1 and 1750 on top of that. So just over 3.1 that got. Have a look at this. Now, Michael, back to your figures. You reckon this on a conventional block is about 3.5 in Mona Vale, but these guys got about 400 grand off because it was a Battle Axe. So it was 3.3, 3.5 on a normal block of land, but discounted slightly because it was a Battle Axe block. Yeah.
And for the family, they're getting the same size home, but 400 grand cheaper. So it's a really good stepping stone. It's a really good home. So it doesn't have to be a stepping stone. It could just be that's a home and that's their budget and they got everything they needed. They don't want to, So I think it's just, I reckon they're good. A lot of the time they're really good buys because, back to my point before, less buyers get caught up in the stigma and they just won't look at it. They see a B next to a house number and they're like, nah, not going. They see a 1/24 that, nah, not going. I want it all off. That's sort of the vibe. But you're still getting it all. Still Torrens title. You can still do what you want. At the end of the day, that neighbour in front is no closer than the neighbour behind you to the side. So, but it does minimize granny flat potential, bigger home potential, but sometimes a lot of people don't need that. So yeah, I think
that is a bit of a clue that if you want to see if it's a granny flat when you're on the internet, if it's an A, a B, or a variation of a full number, it could most possibly be a battle axe. But that's a show.
It's a show.
That's Battle Axes.
Battle Axe
With Team Novak.
That's
See you guys.
Bye.